I want to do this video on sticking to your healthy weight loss plan because recently I'm doing a search on how to stick to your program, and the amount of terrible advice is just spread all through social media, the internet, especially the first 5 pages of Google. And it literally makes me nauseous to see what information is being put out there by people that have zero experience in this area. And if you try their advice, you're just going to fail miserably. And the big problem with that is every time you do a diet that doesn't work over a period of time, your metabolism becomes slower and slower and slower to the point where you're on 500 calories a day and you're not losing any weight. I've seen this in practice with certain people who have dieted as a child, and it just literally destroys their ability to lose weight down the road. So before I get into how to solve this problem once and for all, I just want to read a few things that you should never follow as far as just bad advice, right? It says, don't deprive yourself of those things that you love to eat. Just eat in moderation. Keep a detailed log of everything you eat. Well, who has time to do that? That's just, it's crazy. Drink more water, okay? You fill up with water. Well, water is not very satisfying. And don't ever let yourself get hungry. Okay, so that would be just frequent meals. Okay, so all of that is very stupid advice if you're trying to stick to a program. This is just not about having willpower or having discipline, because even if you have willpower or you have discipline and you're driving down the street and you're hungry and you're craving and you see Chick-fil-A or Kentucky Fried Chicken or Taco Bell, it's going to call your name, right? It's going to haunt you. Or you're going through a grocery store and you're walking past potato chips or the bakery section. It's going to be torture. Or even at home, let's say you're sitting watching TV, it's late at night, and you have something in the pantry that's calling your name.
Eric, Doritos.
I don't care how much willpower you have or discipline, you're not going to be able to resist that for very long. So let's just talk about hunger and cravings for a moment. There's two main hormones involved. You have ghrelin, okay, which is the hunger hormone, makes you hungry. So we would want to decrease ghrelin. And then we want to increase this other hormone that makes you satisfied. It's called leptin. So if you look these two up, you can just isolate the factors to balance these out to help you. And I'll just quickly get on the list. So we want to get more sleep because we know if you're tired and you're not sleeping, you're going to crave more. You're going to be hungrier. Decreasing sugar. Okay, we know about that. Having adequate amount of protein, right? I've talked about that recently in several videos. If you're deficient in protein, think about how much of your body is protein. Not only do you have muscles and you have ligaments and tendons and even part of your bone, all the chemicals, the enzymes are all protein. So from a survival standpoint, your body's going to keep eating until you get enough protein. So we also have fiber. Your microbes eat fiber. We have also the reduction of stress. The more stress you have, the hungrier you are, decreasing alcohol, smoking, etc. And then we also have caffeine. A little bit of caffeine can satisfy you, but a large amount can make you hungry. And then they'll mention medication, especially antidepressants, can really make you hungry. And then they talk about gastric bypass. Another factor is the amount of fat that you eat. If you eat more fat, you'll be more satisfied and less hungry. And then you also have the speed at which you eat. If you eat really fast, it can also alter these hormones. So the slower you eat and you chew your food, it can put these hormones back into balance. And of course, I already talked about decreasing sugar, but also decreasing carbs. You have the menstrual cycle as well. So when you have the menstrual cycle, you have this shift in hormones that will make you crave. If that's your situation, just as a side note, a little L-tryptophan will go a long way. That can totally handle cravings when you have your menstrual cycle. But anytime you take L-tryptophan, always take it on an empty stomach because it can compete with other proteins and it won't work if you have it with meals. Another factor is eating nutrient-dense foods, right? That's going to be more satisfying. So that would include like omega-3 fatty acids, the trace minerals like zinc, especially from like seafood, for example, or organ meats, or just higher quality, like grass-fed beef, things like that. This next thing is really the big factor of this whole video. It says, eat frequent small meals to prevent hunger. If you've been watching my videos in the past, you'll know that if you take on this advice, it's going to be a big problem because every time you eat, you increase insulin, okay? And you start developing insulin resistance. And in the presence of insulin, you're not going to be able to burn fat. And if you're not burning fat, you're not going to lose weight. And if we just look at the importance between these two things, lowering your carbohydrates and also eating less frequent is way, 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 way more important. In other words, we're talking about intermittent fasting. If you have any problem losing weight and you don't implement intermittent fasting, I don't think you're going to be successful. And if we just take a look simply at hunger and cravings, what are we really talking about? We're trying to solve the problem of fuel in your cells. Because if there's not enough fuel in your cells, you're going to crave and you're going to be hungry. That's what it's all about. So, is there possibly a way to feed the cells fuel between the meals without eating? And the answer is absolutely. We can feed the cells your own body fat. You're never going to be able to do that in the presence of frequent meals because to get your body to burn fat, it's all dependent on lowering your insulin by lowering your carbohydrates and eating less frequent. You see, to get your body to burn fat, you have to adapt to fat. It's called being fat adapted, okay? And that does take about 2 to 3 days to get into that state. But once you're in that state, your hunger goes away and your cravings will go away. If you still have cravings or hunger, all that means is you're not adapted yet. But when you know how to get your body adapted and you can start running on fat fuel and other things called ketones, okay, ketones are basically a byproduct of fat being burned. And you're actually burning both fat and ketones when you're adapted. And to do that, you have to lower insulin through lowering your carbs and sugar and also eating less frequent. So that way, regardless of what environment you are in, okay, if you're at a party, if you're at a social event, if you're driving down the street and you see a fast food restaurant, or you're in a grocery store and you see those chocolate brownies, you can control yourself. You can walk past those brownies and not have this incredible impulse to have it. Why? Because your cells are finally getting fuel, even though you're not eating anything. And whether you have resistance to leptin, it's called leptin resistance, okay, or insulin resistance, which then will make you hungry all the time, that will be quickly fixed because getting on a ketogenic diet fixes both of those problems. Versus being in another condition where you're having these frequent meals to prevent hunger, your carbs are too high, you're going off your program too frequent, you're not doing intermittent fasting, and you're literally trying to lose weight on top of cravings and hunger, which is literally, it's torture. So I really want this to sink in if you want to be successful. When you see all these little tricks to try to stick to a diet, ignore those because now you really know how to do it the correct way. Right now, we have almost 8,000 success stories on my website. You can read them. These are from actual people. I don't know any website that has that many success stories. So, how do you do it? A healthy version of the ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting. You want to add other things in there too, like a little bit of apple cider vinegar and water, which will help and make it easier. Berberine also helps to speed things up. It's a natural herb. And I have a really good video to get started on this to make it very simple, and I put it up right here. Check it out.